pledge, and then a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Item 2 on our agenda is recognitions and acknowledgements, and I'll refer this to Dr. Hill and Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this evening, we are going to call Dr. Parker forward so he can introduce our new student rep for the spring semester.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our Semester 2 Board of Education representative, Ms. Warisha Khan. Warisha is a very motivated and highly engaged senior at Windsor High School. She is deeply passionate about student advocacy and committed to fostering positive change within our school community. I've had the privilege of witnessing Warisha's growth over the past 4 years into an exceptional student, compassionate advocate, and dedicated community servant. She has a proven track record of leadership, organization, and communication, and excels in creating and leading social emotional learning lessons, mentoring underclassmen, and collaborating with peers and educators. Warisha regularly volunteers with programs and initiatives connected to social justice and local government, dedicating countless hours to serving those in need. Her passion for creating positive change is matched by her humility, compassion, and selflessness. As president of the Windsor High School Chamber Choir, she coordinates events, manages documents, and serves as liaison between the members and the choir director, Dr. White. Warisha is also actively involved in the Windsor High School's National Honor Society, Rho Kappa Social Studies Honor Society, and Fresh Start Student Mentoring Program, all demonstrating her commitment to academic excellence and community engagement. Also, Warisha currently serves as a student connections leader, where she has developed skills in student guidance and course selection and SEL lesson planning. Her ability to balance rigorous academic commitments with extensive community service speaks to her unparalleled drive and dedication to learning and the community. Her collaborative spirit and meaningful goal setting have made a significant impact on our school community, where she is highly respected by both students and faculty. Her passion for creating positive change is matched by her compassion, humility, and selflessness. Again, Warisha's efforts have not only benefited others, but have inspired those around her to engage in meaningful causes as well. Warisha is driven by supporting initiatives connected to social justice, dedicating countless hours. Those are just a few. And I think what you'll find from Warisha as this goes on is that she is very committed to her student population. And at this point, I have no doubt that she possesses the vision, resiliency, and empathy necessary to represent this board and be a transformative leader for years to come. Members of the board, Dr. Hill, I present to you Warisha Khan.
Like someone who was on the board.
Welcome. Welcome. You look familiar. Guess we're gonna get mom up too.
Yeah, might as well. Precedent for that. You guys squeezing in?
Next Next, I'd like to recognize Mr. Lockhart.
Good evening. As Secretary of the Windsor Board of Education, I wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone present and to our television viewers. The board, superintendent, and I are pleased that you have joined us as we celebrate achievement, review information, and make policy decisions related to effective operation of the Windsor Public Schools. This is a regular meeting, and all items that will be discussed or voted on this evening have been posted as required by state law. Our mission is to develop the genius in every child and create lifelong learners. As the Windsor Board of Education, we are here to set goals, listen to reports of the superintendent, approve budgets, contracts, and personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. We are not here to make management decisions or solve problems of individuals. Management is the responsibility of the superintendent. Meetings of the board are open to the public. It is a time when the board conducts its business of governing the school system in a public arena. The regular meetings are not meetings with the public. Therefore, comments for the audience will be confined to the time designated for the public to address the board. Decorum and courtesy are important elements in effective public meetings. Please silence your cell phones or communication devices and refrain from talking while others are speaking. Since it is legally mandated that proceedings be accurately recorded, the board chair may have to ask for order periodically should noise begin to interfere with our recording capabilities. I am pleased that you have taken time to be with us this evening. We are very proud of this school system and thank you for your interest in Windsor Public Schools.
Thank you, Secretary Lockhart. Next item is item number 3 on the agenda, audience to visitors. Robin, if you could read your script.
Good evening. This is Robin Daly from the Superintendent's Office. If anyone from the public would like to address the board, you may do so in 2 ways. You may type your name, address, and comment into the Q&A feature in the Zoom application, or you may speak by clicking Raise Hand or dialing *9 within the Zoom application. When you are called on to speak, you'll be given 3 minutes to state your name, address, and comment. Please do not place the call on speakerphone. No comments can be made against the employees of the school district or children outside of your own. No comments will be made by the board at this time.
Okay. Just hold on 1 minute.
I see she...
Just to let speakers know, if you're in the room here, I see quite a number of people. At the 2.5 minute mark, if you've been speaking, Secretary Lockhart will hold up a red card briefly. And at 3 minutes, he'll hold it up and keep it up, and please finish up your comments at that time. If you're on the phone and can't see a red card because you're on a phone, Mr. Lockhart will interrupt you at that 3 minute mark to let you know you have to finish your remarks. So I'm going to start with the boardroom. Is there anybody in the boardroom who'd like to address the Board of Education tonight? Please state your name and address.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mayella Guyer-Ernest, and I am the Adult Education Coordinator and a proud town resident. I reside at 316 Palisado Avenue. I am here tonight joined by some of our dedicated adult education instructors and students to advocate for the continued support of our local adult education program. This year, thanks to a 4-year federal grant of over $45,000 annually, along with our state funding, we've significantly expanded our services. We've hired a career navigator, added an evening digital literacy class, launched an integrated English language civics education course, and added a literacy class and added a fourth NEDP advisor. These enhancements are helping us empower our students, providing critical career support, digital skills, and knowledge to fully engage in their communities. Our program has seen tremendous growth because of our high quality of instruction, welcoming learning environment, wraparound services, and high success rate. We currently have 146 enrolled students and have increased GED attainment by 40%, with 7 high school completion students so far this year. We are projecting 14 high school graduates by the end of this year. Our GED boot camp and partnerships with local businesses like Cummins Engine Company are contributing to this success. Because of our wraparound services, several of our students have found jobs within our own Windsor Public Schools, local grocery stores, entered Connecticut Community College, or joined the military. This speaks to the direct impact our program has on students' lives by helping them secure employment and further their education. It's important to note that our program receives both state funding and, for the next 4 years, federal grant money, meaning it's not just town taxpayer money at work, but resources shared across the state to support local education efforts. By educating adults, we're creating more self-sufficient families and a stronger, more educated and resilient Windsor community. Our programs not only improve students' job prospects, but also help them support their children's education, creating a cycle of learning and growth for future generations. I respectfully urge the Board of Education to continue supporting our program, as it plays a crucial role in fostering a more educated and resilient Windsor community. After all, an educated community is a healthy and thriving community. Thank you for your time and continued commitment to our town's future.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to address the board? And for the public, just to know if people are watching or listening, all 9 board members are participating. 3 are virtual and 6 are up here on the dais. I'll say it one more time. Anybody else in the boardroom who'd like to address the board tonight? Seeing no one rushing up. Ms. Daly, is anybody online with their hand raised?
Yes, there is. Caller, you are now unmuted. Hello?
Yeah.
You're unmuted and you're able to speak at the audience to visitors portion of the meeting.
Please state your name and address for the record.
John Casserino, 48 Oak Road. As I listen to your meeting concerning medical, I hear again and again one main thing, enabler. Let me explain. It is like a very bad virus among your staff. You have a virus on your council, the board, and teacher staff that you must eliminate before they get to you. I think you know who they are. Look at your staff that are out now, or have been out since January of this year. They are your enablers. Get a physical trainer or one of your gym teachers to go to bat for you. Use your PA system to support physical education, exercise, by example. Maybe the leadership team can wear athletic clothing to your many schools to support this 1 day a week. Create a physical education exercise program for your teachers and support to follow for the entire year. Add people to this program as well as give them class credit. Reward staff and people at the end of the school year. You must start very soon before the entire system gets dissolved. So I think people in your leadership management team could take one section of your budget and maybe perhaps come up with better suggestions for a better way of managing your money, managing your people, so that you can produce what you would like to, but at a better cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with a hand raised, Ms. Daly?
There is not.
Any last call for in the boardroom? Anybody else who'd like to address the board? Seeing and hearing no one, if, without objection, I'm looking to my right and my left. I'll close audience to visitor. Audience visitor is closed. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there any items that people wish to be pulled? Seeing and hearing none, is there a motion?
Before I ask, Mr. Halleck, Ms. Taylor, Ms. Cantor, is there anything you wish to be pulled from the consent agenda item?
No.
All right. Hearing none, Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve consent agenda items 4A, financial report, 4B, enrollment report, 4C, food service report, and 4D, human resources report.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos, for the consent agenda items to be approved. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Did you count, Jeremy?
Yeah, Mr. Halleck?
Mr. Halleck, we didn't hear your vote. Yes, no?
He didn't say anything. Anything in the chat, Ms. Bailey?
There is not, but I did just request that he unmute. I've been given no indication that there are any audio
Motion
issues.
carries 800. Next item on the agenda is number 5, approval of minutes. Are there any minutes that a board member would like to see pulled?
Ms. Taylor, Mr. Halleck, Ms. Cantor, any minutes to be pulled?
No. Nothing, thank you.
Mr. President, I hear nothing from Mr. Halleck. Hearing nothing. I move the Board of Education approve the minutes of January 22nd, 2025 regular meeting, the January 28th public forum with the Finance Committee meeting, February 5th, the same, and February 11th, the same.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos for approval of the minutes of January 22nd regular meeting, January 28th public forum with Finance Committee, February 5th public forum with Finance Committee, and February 11th public forum with Finance Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Halleck did say, I heard Mr. Halleck as well.
I did it as well. All opposed? Nay? Abstentions? Motion carries 900. We're now at item number 6, student representative report. Ms. Khan?
Hi, everyone. First, I'm just going to recap some prior events that took place at Windsor High School. At the end of January, we had our talent show. The winners were Denzel Terry Zooks, Josiah Sosa, Amanda Acevedo, and Amanda Ane. Last week, we also had our Black History Month Assembly. We had performances from the cheerleaders, the Warriors in Rhythm, Black Excellence, Young Women's Leadership Corps, and featured soloists and speakers. We also had multiple performances from the Windsor High School Musical Department, who is the band and the choir from the music department will also be performing tomorrow at Pequannock Elementary School. Going off of the music department, next week we have a tribute concert that Dr. White is organizing as a tribute to Earth, Wind, and Fire on February 27th. So if anyone would like to come out and support that, it takes place at 7 p.m. On March 6th, we have our parent-teacher conferences, so parents should start signing up as soon as possible. Also in March, we have NHS applications for the Windsor High School chapter of the National Honor Society. Those applications started today, actually. So students in the 11th and 12th grade can start applying, getting their community service in, all of that. In our athletics department, our girls and boys basketball have started in the CCC tournament. They both had games yesterday, which they both won against East Hartford and New Britain. Our boys basketball, girls cheerleading, wrestling, and boys swim team all had their senior nights this month as well. And the last thing on my list is seniors are heading towards graduation really soon. Caps and gowns are being ordered. The deadline for that is March 1st. Underclassmen and 11th graders are all doing their course selections. That's also really soon, like due. I think it ended last week, actually. Yeah. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Khan?
You look kind of familiar. Welcome back home.
I thought you looked familiar. Well, as I'll say to you, hopefully I'll remember to say it at each meeting, you're welcome to stay and watch the rest of the meeting. But being a student, we know you're very busy, and so you're welcome to leave. But thanks so much for your first report. All right.
Mr. President, can I say something?
Yes.
I'm going to take off of Mr. Lockhart's point of personal privilege, as he would like to say. This is strange. I'm sitting here watching this young lady give this report, and her mama, the state rep, was my student at Windsor High School. I'm like, how does her mother have a whole graduating senior sitting next to me now? And she looks exactly like she did in high school, but I am feeling like a dad moment all of a sudden, like super proud. This is crazy, so I'm just really excited to have you here.
Mr. President?
Mr. Lockhart.
I would like for the board to consider for a motion moving item 12, which is the executive session, to happen between agenda items 7A and B. Would such a motion be in order?
Yes, it would be.
Mr. President, I move that agenda item 12, which is the executive session to discuss security cameras at school locations, as well as discussion on district software contracts and on insurance claim numbers. We will invite the Superintendent, Dr. Terrell Hill, Assistant Superintendent for Instructional Services, Dr. Noha Abdel Haidi, and Chief of Operations, Daniel Batchelder, to be a part of the discussion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos, to move the executive session after the president's report. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 9-0-0. Do the president's report next. On February 12th, I attended, along with Mr. Lockhart and Dr. Hill, the CABE, CREC, and the Hartford Area Superintendents Association legislative breakfast at the Capitol. Unfortunately, Ms. Khan was at her other job, her day job, besides being a representative, and she couldn't attend, but Jane Garibay was able to be there. And it was good to hear kind of everybody on the same page, which was more money for education and fewer unfunded mandates. And hopefully that legislators know when they have a great idea that they really should be thinking, is this something that we really want to put on our districts, our localities? There's a lot of good ideas, but the hardest place to have the money for that are towns. For cities, for rural areas and suburban areas alike, there's a lot of burdens that have been placed on our town. So I think hopefully that message was heard loud and clear. On February 14th, I attended what Ms. Khan had mentioned, the Black History Celebration at Windsor High School, and as usual, they knocked it out of the park. Thanks so much for Dr. White and Ms. Woodard, who was the MC, for quite an unbelievable event. Music, poetry, dance, it had it all. I know Ms. Taylor was sitting next to me because Her daughter at one point was at the microphone, so I know she was there and impressed as well. Coming up, I'll be participating in some of the Read Across Americas in March in a couple of schools. On March 12th, I'll be taking a few students with me from Windsor High School, including Ms. Khan, to what's called Cave on the Hill. It's our day of lobbying at the legislature, and Mr. Lockhart will be front and center as president of that organization. I know, Mr. Panos, you were attended last year. I don't know if we expect another return.
Probably.
And that's the end of my report. Are there any questions? Seeing and hearing none.
Mr. President,
Mr. Lockhart.
I move the Board of Education enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing security cameras at school locations, as well as a discussion on district software contracts and on insurance claim numbers. We will invite Superintendent Dr. Terrell Hill, Assistant Superintendent for Instructional Services, Dr. Noha Abdel Haiti, and Chief of Operations Danielle Batchelder to be a part of the discussion.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Any?
And just for the public, this was part of our Finance Committee work, and this was information that the committee requested before we did a full deliberation on the budget this evening. So we're just buttoning up our work and then making sure that when we come back, we're able to jump right into the budget with all information in hand.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Oh, sorry. Mr. Wollaston? Sorry.
There was a little more discussion. I just wanted to ask for the listening public and the audience in the room, do we have like an estimated amount of time that this would take in case they wanted to stay and wait for us to get into the budget deliberations?
I'll look to Mr. Lockhart and but maybe also look into Dr. Hill.
I would anticipate with these 3 agenda items with moderate questions, I would estimate 20 minutes. Because it's information only.
Okay, we'll go back to,
Yes, so the reason why we're going into executive session for, obviously, our safety plans are part of what we do as a district. Those are things that we always discuss in executive session, and there might be some funding within the said budget that will impact that. As far as our software, we are in competitive processes with our software with other districts as well, and we compete for better pricing than most districts, so we do not want to be put in a bidding war or without impacting any other school district with their finances. So, and as far as the insurance claim numbers, those are numbers that we feel that should be private. We're not going to be violating anybody's HIPAA, but we are sharing numbers that will just show a high level of how many cases we have and the actuarial numerics behind them.
thank you, Mr. Lockhart. I think we're back to the vote. Any other comments?
No.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 900. At 7:33, we're going into executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Halleck. Ms. Taylor? All right. Ms. Cantor, can you hear me? All right.
Deal with the general fund in the end. Okay? Does that make sense? Yep.
Well, I assume you're coming in with like 8% increase, right?
Absolutely. The sky is the limit. This would be this.
No, I was here when they introduced it and they gave me a copy. Well, they were there and I stole a copy. Do you want to see it? I don't even use printers anymore. It's like amazing to me. Yeah.
I always hate that it's 20 cents a page.
Yeah.
But
I know, I work in the States, so I don't do anything. Like, I don't do anything at work. I know, even when, sometimes people send notes back to myself, and I just send it there, and I have a copy of the message forward.
I did that to my Massachusetts assistant. Not paying attention, just went to the CPA type address sort of thing. And she goes, I can't respond to this because if you have my, you don't have my other address.
Right.
Utilize it or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
I understand.
I'm playing with the creepy eyes. See?
Find a way to like get that up on the screen. Then you can roll your eyes
There you go.
if you hear something silly.
Yep. No, I won't be in the back seat, man. I'm just another member now. Good times.
Oh, I think you'll like the new party app.
Okay.
I think data set is cool.
Recording in progress.
Good to go there? Everybody's still on? We are back in regular session. It's 8:33. Next item on the agenda is 7B, Finance Committee's recommendation regarding the 2025-2026 financial plan and adoption of the 2025-2026 financial plan.
Mr. President,
Mr. Lockhart.
to start the discussion, as Chair of the Finance Committee, I move that the Board of Education accept the proposed 2025-2026 budget submitted to the Board by the Superintendent, Dr. Terrell Hill, with a 6.88 increase over the current year's budget.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Wollaston. Discussion, start with Mr. Lockhart.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we deliberate this budget over three periods. We discuss line by line, and it is the opinion of the chair that we should begin this as a baseline start point of a discussion. It has been demonstrated by the superintendent that he has cut from areas that he feel that can be cut. There is one piece of the budget which is a $2 million bump in the insurance, which is abnormal for our budgeting process. We understand that if we keep that $2 million within our budget, it will inflate our future Board of Education budgets with the town. So we're very concerned about that as well. But we have a responsibility to make sure that we take care of all the insurance claims for all of our staff. And this board, I believe, is committed to doing that. I also believe that there will be different perspectives that are shared by the other board members. And I look forward to hearing the deliberations and resolving this matter this evening. So that will be my opening statement.
Mr. Panos?
I have you want to have some discussion first? I do have a substitute, Mike.
You may take that.
Okay. A substitute motion is a move that the superintendent's proposed budget be reduced to $88,619,067, a reduction of $1,491,232 from his proposed budget, with $750,000 removed from the proposed increase in the benefits budget, and $741,232 removed from the budget for funding former ESSER grant positions that are now board funded, for a total increase of $4,305,728, or a 5.1% increase.
Is there a second?
Second.
Substitute motion made by Mr. Panos, seconded by Mr. Madison. And can you go back with those numbers again?
Sure, I can.
Thank you.
I can give you, if you understand, I'll give you this. Let me give a few to the folks over here and to Ms. Robin.
One for,
Maybe,
I'll
yeah.
give one to,
Yeah,
I'll give one to, yeah.
yeah. I'll give one to Robin Bailey. Give one to Ms. Batchelder, have one?
Yes, Ms. Batchelder has one and Ms. Bailey has one.
Anyone else?
He gets to speak first to the motion. He gets to speak first.
Mr. Panos, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes,
And if you could speak up, just because I know we have people in the audience
Sure.
and other board members
sure.
virtually.
I've looked over the numbers closely. I think that these reductions are appropriate, given the fact that we're going to be faced with a serious tax increase problem again this year. Now, the first item, the request is for like $2 million. The superintendent has requested a serious increase in the benefits, $2,123,000, a 16.8% increase. So this seems like a reasonable reduction in that increase. It still makes it 10.9% at $1,373,000. This is an increase from approximately $12,600,000. So it's a very serious increase. But what I'm proposing is that it only be increased by 10.9%. That's still a very hefty increase. Now, in the past, we've dealt with these issues before. If this is excessive, I mean, we do not know exactly what it is, but it seems to me that if we've dealt with these issues before, we can deal with them again. I don't want to go through and outline my whole argument, but it's based upon the idea that benefits, as they are shown to us in the finance reports monthly, are kind of unconvincing that these things are out of hand. I'm simply going to have to understand this better, or it's going to have to be explained better, but it does not show up in the finance reports, and therefore, I feel that this is a compromise. This is an enormous increase in that item. The other is having to do with ESSER positions that were added to the general account over the last several years that we had COVID, and a number of them were added. There were interventionists and certain special ed, not special ed. I did not ask for any reduction in special ed. I have a list that I would work from, but that's not included in the motion. Is up to them. My suggestions were the removal of tutors and not all the SAL, just a few of the SEL positions, things like that nature, and that came to a reduction of about $741,000 for a total. I was looking for something that would be on the order of $1.5 million total, and that's where we ended up. So the proposed increase by this motion would be about 4.3 million, or 5.11% increase. And I think that this is a reasonable thing. ESSER positions were added. Largely, they were added to take care of COVID. I think sometime we would have to say that we've added these positions. I'm sure that we have staff turnover that can handle this without being too rough. And so I think it's a reasonable reduction that we can send forth to the town council. They're going to have a tough time as it is. That's my justification, dude.
Anyone want to speak to this? I don't know if anyone online wants to speak before I speak. Any of the board members who are virtual like to speak to this request? Ms. Cantor?
Thank you. I'm finding that it's rather high. I think this is a very high increase, and we have the revaluation coming, and it causes a financial hardship for many taxpayers. And you have a lot of senior citizens who are on a limited fixed income, and this is unaffordable for them too with this increase. And not everyone earns a high salary. People are already overextended, and my feelings are very similar to Mr. Panos's on this increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, sorry, Mr. Halleck. You can.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say that the ESSER positions, obviously, those were meant to be a temporary fix during COVID. We obviously didn't have them at one point, and then they came in, and now I feel that we can live without some of those positions at this point. We did keep some special ed positions in the Republican budget, which I'm very, very happy about, as well as a few of the SEL positions. So we did not get rid of that completely. I just want to make that clear. Taxpayers have taken it on the chin. 2 years ago, we adopted a budget of 4.84. Last year was just over 5%, and now this year, the superintendent is asking for the 6.88. So I feel we definitely have to give taxpayers as well as a low-income seniors and also a low-income families as well the opportunity to see a lower increase to help them out. And as we know, our state taxes are possibly going to be going up, as well as the re-evaluation that we're in the second half in as well. One more thing regarding the ESSER and grant funding as well is we seem to have a bad habit when grants expire to actually to just go ahead and automatically put them in our budget. So I think that's something we have to look at and make sure that we're not that we keep that under control, because as we keep putting more and more things in the budget, it can obviously make our increase go up and up, and make taxes go up and up in our town as well. So I hope that everyone will support the Republican budget. I feel, as Mr. Panel said, it is a fair compromise. So, I am happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing another hand raised. Mr. Wolfson?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. For me, when I think on the budget and think on our role here as board members, the first question that comes to me is, why are we doing what we're doing, and who are we doing it for? And I heard many comments today and within the past few days that are based on reevaluation and the taxpayer. And I understand that that is a very important part of the process that is to be considered. But when I really think about our role as a board member and what we signed up to do here in this room, I can't help but feel like we're here to present to the town the best budget to support the school system as possible. I'm not saying that when we send this budget forward to the town council, they can't say with their best interests of the taxpayer, hey, we can't make this work and send it back to us. I'm not saying that's not a possibility, but I really believe that as a collective group, our main priority should be making sure that what we have coming from this room is the best thing that we can send to either prevent future budget freezes or prevent unforeseen maintenance issues or prevent a lot of things that we have happened in the past with underfunded budgets. With that being said, I will be in support primarily of the 6.88 for those reasons stated, because I would like to support a school system that is aiming on growing. And I would aspire greatly for the 6.88 to be the budget that is presented to the council. Should the council decide to refuse that budget, I would understand and we would be able to make changes. But sometimes I do think it is very important to let the process play through to show people where we stand as a board, where our heart stance is, and what we aspire to do for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. The only thing before, if I may, Mr. Lockhart, I'd just like some feedback from Dr. Hill regarding any implications of the kind of cuts that were mentioned as to benefits, as an explanation. Is there, I don't want it to be, we'll yield.
Say your question again, please, Mr. President.
Well, I guess.
I think it's our budget.
Yeah.
He's already presented with
I know,
it.
but
So why don't you make your arguments?
I'd like to know whether or not there's something that,
I think he would have
will
told you,
just
but
be
anyway, go
so
ahead.
untoward of the cuts. Is there anything that would be violating the law or anything else by the kind of cuts, not to the ESSER position, but to me at least, the benefits part of the budget that's projected?
So, and I'll have Ms. Balcello jump in. So, what you're saying with Mr. Panos' proposal, I don't see any violation to laws at all. These are, as he stated, these are the proposed budget cuts from the Republican caucus, right? So there's I don't see a violation at all. Is there something with regards to the benefits that's a violation to law?
No, but, well, I'm not 100% sure on your question, but I just want to make sure it's known that we're currently in the hole. The $2 million is for the insurance fund. We have to budget 125% per stop loss regulations, and we're currently not at that threshold as we speak tonight. And this $2 million, I can't promise will even clear or cover all next year. So I'd be happy to have, give the board a tutorial on how it all works, but it's the absolute must that we have this money in the budget. If we do not, what's going to happen is we are going back to the town of Windsor and we are asking them to fund our insurance fund next year.
Thank you. Mr. Lockhart and then Mr. Panos.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm going to speak solely on the motion. I'm speaking against the motion. As just presented, the insurance costs are typically projected year over year. And for a $2 million projection to be made, considering that we've been flat in those projections over a decade, is very alarming. But the information is very clear that we are definitely in the hole with the insurance costs. And there's one thing that the Windsor Public Schools are going to do is we're going to pay our bills and we're going to take care of our people. So cutting any funding to that line item would be, I don't think it would be fair. And if we didn't fully underfunded, the funds are going to come from somewhere, and they can lead to other things being cut, whether programs and or staff. And we don't want to go into a budget knowing that and still underfunded. So for that piece, and as far as the ESSER funds, yes, there is a bad habit that I support on this board to fully support providing more resources and supports. The ESSER funds were designed and actually highlighted how woefully underfunded public education is across this country. And we cheerfully received those supports. And a lot of those supports went to what? Supporting the achievement gap and addressing it where? At the pre-K to 3 level, where we put interventionists in the classrooms where there was tier 2 supports, and we put them in places where we were struggling and needed supports. Sadly, we know for a fact that a lot of those interventionists did not 100% of their time spend their time providing that support, because from time to time, they had to cover classrooms for whatever reason. We understand that. We also understand that the staff has been asking for more building subs, been asking for more support, more human capital, and quite frankly, even I, who love to make sure that we overfund the budget and provide everything, we do not have an infinite pot of money to do that. So I understand that. We're trying to do a lot with a little. These interventionists have done a great, I've seen them at work at Pequannock and at OE, where they're delivering lessons and teaching and pulling kids out and providing that tier 2 support, and then bringing them back into the classroom so that the teacher can continue with the tier 1 instruction, and then allowing those kids to catch up and then stay on task, and to make sure that, what I want to make sure is that the teachers understand that this board wants to fully support them and to put the supports and programs in place. Those ESSER funds gave us an opportunity to do so. I agree that a lot of people feel that it was a temporary stopgap. Yes, that is absolutely true. But again, it provided an opportunity to show that if there was actually more funding in the budget, you can do more things to address what you're trying to do within your district. So for those reasons alone, based off of trying to cut the insurance, as well as cutting any of the ESSER positions, I'm not in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Panos.
Yeah, let me address these remarks in turn. First, Mr. Lockhart, since he's the last here. So, based upon what he has said, there is simply no upper limit at all to how much he would spend. So this is, it's like a business. Many times what happens is it gets overloaded, and they're not addressing the appropriate things, and therefore they don't have the performance that they should. One of them, for example, is to overload the teacher's classroom with all sorts of programs, and it just simply detracts. So I haven't seen, we've had many years with enormous increases in the budget without the performance. And so I would suggest that, I strongly suggest, and I have made repeatedly over the decades, remarks about what needs to be done, and that is that you need time on task. The teachers need to have a single group to instruct, all day long, and it's having several different levels, for example, it just multiplies the problem. So I believe that it's possible to have much better results with the money that we have. The United States, after all, we have the highest costs in the world, and yet there are many, many countries that outperform us. That I've been to Asian countries where they tell me that well over 30 kids in a classroom, and yet they regularly beat us in all the measures. And so the demand is made upon the students. There are other things where the board is not here at the time to get into details of that nature, but it's the same thing that happens to large corporations that are successful at some point, and then they become overloaded, and at times you have to pull back, and you find that you can actually increase. So I think this is one of those times. Let me address the issue of the the benefits, or as I would call them, the benefits of the medical program, the medical costs. I go back to our own finance reports, and that's the data that we are given. Now, I hear now all of a sudden I need a tutorial on why it is that we owe $2 million to, certainly for what we owe already, you're going to have to make it good somehow, and you've done this in the past. So whatever that method is, you're going to have to do it for this year. I don't understand how this makes no sense from the point of view of the financial reports that we receive monthly. That's the data that I have. It's undeniable that I cannot find this kind of increase, 16% increase, I'd say. It just isn't there. And what I'm asking for, I mean, they're asking for over 2 million. I'm saying it was 750,000. Is that it's unconvincing. That's the problem, and it just doesn't square with the data that we receive on a monthly basis. And so I don't get that. As for the remarks by Mr. Wollaston, it is up to the board to present the best, we would say. However, that doesn't mean the most. The most is a very high number. You can just go on and add. I see no limit to this argument. You have to be convincing. You have to convince the town council. After all, we have to go to them and say, look, this is a responsible budget. Don't cut it. This is the best way to go to them, because otherwise they're going to come back and say 6.88, heck with that. Obviously, you have no resistance whatsoever. You're being irresponsible, and we're facing taxpayers, so we do have to take it somewhat into account. If someone wanted to really take it, they would say, based upon the taxpayers' argument, we should take it down to 3%. Never mind 5%, 5.1 or 6.8. This is a compromise budget. But if we go in together all 9 and say, and then we can make the demand, look, don't cut this. That'll be a much stronger argument. It would show, just the absolute number, 6.88, is high. Understand? It's not anything else. It's a big number. So luckily, there was an error discovered, and it was, instead of being 7.55, which would have been just out of the question, it's now 6.88. There are a lot of details to this thing that we could talk about that indicate, gee, that town council members could definitely ask, well, and including on the issue of the money we're spending for insurance, health insurance. It seems we're quite free with our money in some cases. So let me just leave it at that. I think that this is the best thing that we have, and it would show, it would prove. I'd be able to go. We could all 9 go to town council and say that we can stick to this. So I'm urging you to go along with it, even if you don't like it, or you don't feel it's adequate. Sorry.
Anyone else? Mr. King, since you haven't spoken, then Mr. Lockhart, then Mr. Wallace.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of that much of a reduction for a lot of the reasons that Mr. Lockhart and Mr. Wilson have pointed out. I do just want to say really quickly, though, we actually have seen increased performance in our school system with the ESSER fundings and the budget we've seen. These guys have come here every month and shown and demonstrated in standardized testing and in other pieces that we are increasing our reading scores, we are increasing our math scores, and we're doing it at a rate better than the surrounding towns. So I just want that record show that for the public, that these things do work. Yes, it's incremental and it takes time, but it's not like there's a massive decline that's outside of the average. We're actually exceeding the average. So just want that record reflected for the public. Thank you.
Mr. Lockhart, then Mr. Wollaston.
Thank you. So, Mr. Panos, I can appreciate your categorization of me that disguised the limit with the way I like to spend. I wish to be very, very clear that when I look at this budget, I never want to lay off anyone, and I always want top programs. That's number one. Number two, I don't mind spending money because I want quality. And in order to have quality, you got to invest in it. So, you know, I'm not in the habit of wasting money, but I don't mind spending good money for quality. So if that means that I'm categorized as a big spender, then I'm going to be a big spender. Because at the end of the day, this particular budget is nothing but a maintenance budget that we approved last year with the same programs, the same people, with the only thing that has gone up is the cost of services, whether it's the collective bargaining units, whether it's transportation, and the insurance. It's the exact same programs, the exact same personnel that we approved last year. And if we are committed to every single soul that comes into this district to teach our kids on a daily basis, this is the cost of doing business. If the $2 million was not in this budget, this number will be a lot lower. But I would also debate that that number could be 3%, and there will be people wanting it to be to 1% or even maybe 0. So I understand how we are here, but at the end of the day, I refuse to race to the bottom. I understand that my personal preferences are just that, my personal preferences. People know that I would love to spend more money. If we're going to categorize my wish to spend, I would love to see more building subs. I would love to see more interventionists. I would love to see more supports in the classroom. I would love to see just more enrichment going on within our buildings. But I have openly admitted during this process that is not the case, and that that all my requests will be kept in my back pocket, no matter how I personally feel. The way I personally feel, I should not support this budget. However, in order for this to move forth, I believe this budget as presented is what the superintendent asked. We have gone through it. He has answered the questions through his staff, and I truly believe that it's appropriate. I may stand alone in this stance, but that's okay. My job is to make sure that I ask for everything that this school district needs, and the superintendent asked for that. Dr. Hill and I, over the past years, have not agreed on the budget publicly. I've always stood out against Dr. Hill, which is wrong, but I always believe that he's been fiscally conservative, and he's been a good steward of the budgets that he has presented to this particular board. So we need to recognize that. We truly, truly need to recognize that. So at the end of the day, we're going to do what we have to do to take care of the staff, because right now we're at a crossroads that, yes, we have to take care of our citizens. Our citizens are hurting in a lot of different ways, and it has become very expensive to live in this place we call America. So we understand that, and we understand that people are hurting across the board. So I don't want to come across as if that I'm not being sympathetic to that. But from this place, I know what it's like to be in a school district where it's underfunded and not getting the services and the opportunities that I see here in Windsor. And what I don't want is that become the case here. I want to provide the best educational experience possible in Windsor from this seat. So I say that as a cheerful taxpayer, with the understanding that I have to be very careful about my vote so that how it impact other folks as well. So there's a very delicate balance there. I recognize that, but I'm standing behind every single employee that was passed in this current budget. I would like them to still be with us on July 1st with the budget that hopefully we will approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willison.
Yes, I'd just like to iterate for the public again. As was mentioned, as it currently stands, we're $2 million in the hole due to the insurance issue that we've had this year. Whether we all understand it or not, it's just a fact of the matter. Our understanding of the facts doesn't change the facts. And just again, for the listening public, a reduction, each percent, it was explained to us that each percent will cost us about 12 positions, whether they are open positions or retirees that will be phasing out soon. Each percent is going to cost us 12 positions, and that's something that we have to consider as well. As is mentioned sometimes in this boardroom, budget means headcount, and the biggest part of our budget oftentimes looks like the salaries, and it's not because we're paying everybody millions of dollars, but it's just the fact of the matter. And I think we should just have a heart in considering that. Also, while understanding that we really don't have the smallest classrooms in all of Connecticut. It's not like we're averaging like 19 or 18 students a classroom here. So just again, those are two things that I hope that the public would consider when hearing our words, as well as the board.
Anybody board members who are virtual? Second bite of the apple for a couple of them, or first for one person? Did she?
I thought she had her hand up.
Ms. Cantor, do you want to be recognized?
Thank you. I just would like to reiterate again, this is a taxpayer's money. It's not your personal money when you go and vote, and you have to look at it all across the board. And it's really become habitual with adding all these positions in through grants and ESSER funds and moving it into the general fund. And that's not being fiscally responsible. What we see in the grades doesn't prove that it's helped them. We look at what their reading levels are and math levels, grades 4 through 8. It just doesn't fit. It's not making, you can throw all the money you want at it. It's not helping. That's my comment. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, rather, I move that we call the question. Do you have a second?
Second.
You need 2/3. I have one more comment to make.
But we still have to vote still.
Yeah. Question's been called. There's no debate on this. Is that correct, parliamentarian? All those in favor of calling the question, say aye.
Aye. Ms. Cantor?
Aye.
No.
Mr. Taylor?
Ms. Cantor.
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Halleck?
Mr. Halleck?
The motion's on the floor to call the question, Mr. Halleck.
Point of order.
Should we have a roll call?
Point of order.
Let's.
I don't believe Ms. Cantor. Point of order. I don't believe Ms. Cantor understands the question. The question is to call the question, not on the motion.
And let's go to a roll call vote, just because we.
Okay. Please explain.
Mr.
President. From a parliamentarian standpoint.
Mr. President, if I may.
Mr. Lockhart.
I would recommend that you repeat the motion, which is to call the question and to advise the board of what they're voting on, and that it requires a 2/3 majority vote to pass, so that everyone's clear on the current motion, which is call the question, not the actual motion. It's the substitute motion itself.
So as Mr. Lockhart indicated, the motion has been to call the question, and I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. If you agree to call the question, and there's 2/3 that agree to that, the debate is ended. Everybody understand?
Yes.
I can't hear you. You keep cutting in and out. I hear bits and pieces. I'm sorry. Can you repeat it and speak louder into the mic?
This is a vote on calling the question. If you vote to call the question, if you vote yes, you're voting to cut off debate. It does need 2/3 vote to pass.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said. If you vote what? Yes?
Ms. Cantor, Ms. Cantor, this is Mr. Lockhart. Can you hear me, ma'am?
I can hear you. But
All right.
It keeps cutting in and out.
All right. So the motion on the floor currently is to call the question. In order to call the question, there's no debate, and it requires a 2/3 majority vote to end debate. That's the motion on the floor, not the substitute motion.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Daly?
This is Robin Daly from the Superintendent's Office. Jill Cantor.
Yes, to end the debate.
Okay.
David Fury.
Yes.
Jeremy Halleck.
Yes.
Anthony King.
Yes.
For once, it's not me.
Leonard Lockhart,
Yes.
James Madison,
No.
Paul Panos,
No.
Ayanna Taylor,
Yes.
Nathan Wollaston,
Yes.
7-9. Sorry, 7-2. 7-2.
Motion to call the question is approved on a 7-2 vote. So we are now going to go vote on
The substitute motion.
substitute motion by Mr. Panos.
And seconded by Mr. Madison.
Thank you. And seconded by Mr. Madison, reducing the budget to a 5.1% increase.
Correct.
Ms. Daly, I'd like a roll call vote.
This is Robin Daly from the Superintendent's Office. Jill Cantor,
Mr. Fury, I could not hear what you said again.
okay.
It cuts in and out.
All right. Ms. Cantor, this is Mr. Lockhart. Can you hear me, ma'am?
I can hear you.
All right, the motion before us is the substitute motion that was made by Mr. Panos, second by Mr. Madison, that the budget increase be 5.1%. That is the substitute motion on the floor.
I would like to have the budget, be 5.1%. I approve of what Mr. Panos had said and Mr. Matt.
So, for the record, Ms. Daly called your name, and you are stating your vote is aye. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
David Fury,
No.
Jeremy Halleck,
Yes.
Anthony King,
No.
Leonard Lockhart,
No.
James Madison,
Yes.
Paul Panos,
Yes.
Ayanna Taylor,
No.
Nathan Wollaston,
No.
5-4. I'm sorry.
It passed?
No.
It's 4-5.
No.
4-5.
Vote is 4-5. The motion fails. Mr. Lockhart, back to your main motion.
Is there any other?
Motion was to approve the 6.88%
That is correct.
budget presented. No? Okay.
So, in light of the discussion that we're having here today, 688 appears to be a very large number. I believe it's inflated with the $2 million insurance, but it's required because it's been demonstrated that we're hemorrhaging funds to cover the insurance month over month. No matter what we do at this dais, that bill is coming due every month, and it has to be paid, and somehow, some way, it's going to be paid. We do have a concern, Mr. President, that it inflates the Board of Ed budget, and if we pass the budget at this current level, we can't go backwards the next fiscal year. So, as the chairman of the Finance Committee, that is a concern, and that will create some issues during the next budget cycle that we need to address. I would love for us to, at some point, figure out how we can work out that 9,000 line with the town to make the budget more reasonable and actually realistic. Well, it's realistic because we got to pay the cost no matter what. But at the end of the day, I just want to highlight for the public that $2 million, if it wasn't in this budget, Ms. Daly, if that $2 million was not in the budget, what would the percentage be? I'm sorry, Ms. Batcher, I'm so, oh my God, I'm losing it.
Yeah. A lot of mistakes being made up here.
I've been hanging with you all night. First mistake. Ms. Batchelder, I'm so sorry. What would the percentage be if we did not have the $2 million cost?
Good number.
That is a good number. However, we've benefited over a decade with our claim rates being low, and I believe we have a responsibility to our staff. They can't control, unbeknownst to some people, their health situations, and they are valued employees of the town. But I think we have to figure out a way to work with the town, through the town council, to see how that can be managed if possible. It's a large number, but it inflates our budget, and we absolutely know that. So it is a concern I believe we all share on this dais. It was shockingly high, and it's been stated that that number may even go up even more, and it's just a projection at this point. So it's an unknown. There's a lot of unknowns, starting with the federal level, and then it can migrate down to the state level, and then the state level and our funding coming from the state could be adversely impacted as well. So these numbers are all projections. We're also looking at the electrical rates. We know those numbers are coming down by state legislation sometime in April. So those numbers may come in at a better number as well. So this budget is a moving target every step of the way. Sometime next month, we can get a better picture from the state of where we are at this point, and we may get better numbers from other utilities that may come back to this board and say, hey, we found some actually true concrete numbers, and it may go, but as of right now, based off of what we know right now, the 688 is the number that's before us. It's going to take a lot of work with us to work with the town council to see how this is going to work on their end and how it's going to be able to merge, if any way. But we also know that people are going to probably want this budget to be cut and to find efficiencies, and we understand that. So I'm hoping that we can have a deliberative discussion on the 688 on why you support or not support it, and then to see exactly how the vote goes from that point, unless there's a substitute motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Panos?
This is deferred by the on the main motion.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
I can't support this motion because just addressing some of the remarks that I've heard here so far, that worrying about the jobs. After all, this is there's a lot of turnover in our job. This is not something that I'm not asking for anything that you could not easily handle, that we haven't done so with far more cuts. And I want to point out that, the enthusiastic desire that you have to increase, all sorts of resources that you want to add more as you do it. We are not the employer of last resort in Windsor. That is not our function. That's how you get, a bureaucracy which is unsustainable at some point, and then you need to go and get an enormous cut. And this has happened before. There were those of us who lived through it in the early 90s. And maybe you weren't around. None of you were around at the time. Well, this is nothing. How would you like to have, probably out of a $40 million budget, have $10 million removed? That would be, we're talking serious stuff here. And talk about classroom sizes going right up to 30, from 24. And that's what happens when you stoke this monster that is called the taxpayer. And, at some point, there comes a rebellion. And and as I pointed out, our problems here have nothing to do with inadequate personnel. Windsor, and even Dr. Hill has remarked, it is a well-resourced district. We do not have a money problem. Other districts have money problems. Yes. So we can't just carry it. Now, I want to point out with regard to this in the whole thing, that we can't carry this forward. Our budget ends in June. So one way or the other, you cannot mix the budget that we have now with the one that's coming forward. So that is it doesn't make any sense. What we're doing is making, as you say, a projection. And the question is that what it's going to be? And so somebody to say, well, I already owe that money. Well, that doesn't make any sense. You're going to pay off whatever it is, and somehow it's going to be paid, whether it's going to the budget, to the town to cover this year's or whatever it is. But this is bogus argument, completely dishonest argument to get up and say that we're going to carry this forward and we're already in a hole for it. It's going to be, we're trying to figure out what it's going to be next year. So we're increasing it. What I'm suggesting, what I suggested before, is we increase it. It's still huge, even if you increased it by $1 million, $1.5 million or something like that, but rather than $2 million. So the difference is not $2 million. Of course, it's $750,000. So, but I don't want to be. I'm off my own topic. But anyway, I'm just explaining why I disagree with the viewpoint here. And so, I think there's something that's got to get us to refocus back on the substance of how we deliver how we do things. That's the main thing of the board. Not to just, well, we're having a problem, so therefore let's increase the number of personnel and staff and just bloat the budget. So I think we'd be much better off to come in with a leaner budget, and it would make a better argument. So I'm going to disagree with this level.
Anyone else like to speak on the current motion? Anybody virtually like to speak on the motion? No one's jumping up and down. I'm going to speak to it, and it's a little unusual for me not to support the superintendent's budget, because he's got the best hand in the district of knowing where we need to put the dollars, where we need to put the staff. When we first had COVID and we had the ESSER funds, we had a discussion on the board that to the best that we could, we should be buying things, one-time things, so that when the money isn't there, we're not in a situation about what are we going to do. But we realized the needs were so great. And COVID may be over, it still exists as a disease, but the impact on it, almost every student knows where they were. Where was their year with learning loss? And again, most of the ESSER positions that we would continue to fund under this, focus on achievement especially in the elementary schools, and with a main focus on the earlier elementary schools, because we know we want our students to be reading when they're in third grade. We have a new reading program that we had to buy. We didn't have a choice. We were told by the state, an unfunded mandate, that we had to do it. But we want our students to be reading for understanding when they hit Clover Street and JFK. And, these are realities. The other reality, however, is this is the second year of the revaluation. And people were hit hard last year and are going to be hit again this year. And I think the board needs to be asking Dr. Hill to sharpen the pencils and look for some other savings. And again, I didn't speak to it, but I didn't agree with the cutting of the benefits when we're told that they may be having hard freezes on accounts to pay the current insurance bills that we have. So the projection, and we're told that we're supposed to project by 125%, that's just what kind of the rules of the game are. So to say we may not pay it, and I'm looking at a couple council members in the room here, you guys go pay it. That's not responsible. So this is difficult for me to say that I can't support 6.88%. It is, to me, ideally, I agree with Mr. Lockhart. I'd love to have more interventionists and more building subs. We had a nurse position that was cut last year when the budget was cut. And I'd like to have that extra person there. It's very hard to get sub-nurses, and it's usually very expensive to do it. And as Mr. Lockhart had articulated earlier, these are all fixed costs. We have a very difficult bus contract that's a 5-year contract. We just finished our bargaining unit negotiations with the Windsor Education Association, and we have other bargaining units that are coming due this coming year. So the costs are real, but I think in looking at our students who benefit from what we do have to look at the parents of those children as well. And what are the expenses that they have, and what are the difficulties? So as we're saying to them, you know, you have to do more with less. I think we're going to have to some degree, do more with less. So I can't support the 6.88% budget. Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak? Seeing and hearing none, Ms. Daly, roll call vote for the 6.88% budget as submitted by Dr. Hill.
This is Robin Daly from the Superintendent's Office. Jill Cantor?
Ms. Cantor, are you aware of what we're voting on at this time?
I couldn't hear the last two sentences that Mr. Fury had said.
That he cannot support the 688 as presented. He asked if there was any other further comments. He paused. There were no further comments. And then he asked Ms. Daly to call the roll for the vote on 688.
My vote is no, or 6.88%.
It is no. Thank you, Ms. Cantor.
David Fury?
No.
Jeremy Halleck?
Oh, no.
Anthony King?
Yes.
Leonard Lockhart?
Yes.
James Madison?
No.
Paul Panos?
No.
Ayanna Taylor?
No.
Nathan Wollaston?
Yes.
Three, six.
The motion fails 3-4, 6 against. At this point, is there another motion?
Mr. Panel?
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes. Ms. Taylor?
Thank you, President Fury. I move the Board of Education reduce the proposed 25-26 proposed budget submitted to the board by Superintendent Dr. Terrell Hill by 1% from the 6.88 increase over the current year's budget. So my motion is to propose 5.88%.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. King to reduce the budget for a 5.88% increase. Ms. Taylor, do you want to speak to the motion?
Yes. I appreciate everyone's perspective on, about, what's too high, what's too low. I think we can all agree that we're doing a lot less with less, and we know that that's just the case across the board, not just in education, but, for our town. I'm not going to repeat word for word all that's been said, but from reval and all the things that we know are coming down, we knew this part was going to happen. We knew that. I trust that the superintendent and his team can make the appropriate adjustments to what is needed with an adjusted budget. 6.88. I mean, all things considered, it may not have been felt as high if we didn't have reval. It might not have felt as high if we didn't have the 2 million insurance claims there, but they're there, and we have to be responsible. I've heard everything that everyone has said this evening and through the budget proceedings, but I feel that this option is a compromise, and I hope that the board will support it. Thank you.
Mr. King?
Just, yeah, for the record, like, I really, it doesn't please me to not fund the board at the asked for level. I think this is really hard. I think it's hard all around for everybody. I'm hopeful from what I've heard from Secretary Lockhart and his role as the finance chair and the faith that we put in the executive committee and the executive board, the superintendent's cabinet, that we'll hopefully be able to find a way to sharpen the pencil without necessarily providing too much pain, in a way that everyone can feel good about, because we do recognize that, you know, there are large increases happening at the town level, and I certainly am sympathetic to the comments and the points that Vice President Taylor and President Fury have made. So as it does hurt, it's not what I wanted, but it is what I will support with Vice President Taylor.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to speak to this motion? Mr. Panos?
Well, all right. This is significantly better than 6.88. So reluctantly, I will support this motion. I would not misunderstand anyone else who voted no on it, but I think that this is a significant progress here, and that to get a little bit more than just a majority on it, I think it will be helpful. We don't always get what we want, so I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to the motion? Anybody online? Anybody here in the boardroom?
Yeah, I'll speak to it.
Mr. Lockhart?
I'm not in favor of the motion. At the end of the day, the superintendent asked for a budget to run the school district. And it's not us rubber stamping a budget. Yes, it is. People may think it's rubber stamping, but it's not. And I'm also a taxpayer. So I want to make sure that that's put out there as well, as if I'm not. I am a taxpayer too, so I understand these decisions that I'm making. It just seems like, just in society, the lowest branch on the tree anywhere in any local municipality, it's the Board of Education budget that gets cut. That's the first thing that gets cut. People may not agree with me, but that's my perspective. So cutting 1% means there's going to be loss of jobs. And I'm struggling with that. It could be loss of programs. I'm hoping we can get savings from utilities. I'm hoping we can get some type of something, but there's nothing that great that's going to move the needle where it's not going to impact bodies. And that's not going to impact some type of instruction or support in the classroom. And people are using the argument that the grades are not that good and that we're struggling in areas. Those perspectives are well received, but at the same time, we need to look at the root cause of why are we having those struggles, and are we actually getting the full bang for our buck, or are they off doing other tasks that we haven't fully funded or supported? So that's my perspective. I'm struggling to even consider supporting this, but as of right now, I'm not in favor of this motion as presented.
Anyone else want to speak to the motion? And I'm going to speak to it, and I'm reluctantly going to support it. And kind of as Mr. Pano said, it's maybe not what the Republicans wanted, but maybe we're in agreement here with the majority of Democrats and Republicans that there had to be some cut, and it shouldn't just be, okay, town council, go at it. We've now said to them that we've looked through the budget book painstakingly, and there's not, to me, there is not fat in this budget. In fact, as been alluded to before, there's a lot of things I would like personally to put in, but this is not the year to do it. And I'm hoping that the cuts that will be made will be ones that will not set us back, and that hopefully this is a temporary problem until maybe 3 years from now when we have another revaluation. But nobody could have anticipated what COVID did, not only to our students, but to people and our businesses. From the surrounding area, we did so well because of our commercial space. The Day Hill area is still booming, but not if you have a business where you got employees in it. Manufacturing is doing well. Other businesses are all along Day Hill are doing well, but our big taxpayers don't have their employees there anymore, whether it's Voya, the Hartford, before with Conica, they're not there. And it's great to say, you know, you can be anti-Amazon and anti-warehouse, but nobody was growing shade tobacco anymore. We needed to try to have some revenue coming in, which is helping to lower taxes. And so I just think we need to say to the taxpayers, including the, you know, all of the taxpayers, those who have students who don't, we understand this is a difficult time. And I'm not ready to slash and burn the budget and move us back far, but I believe with time here and hopefully that again, that there may be positions lost, but maybe not bodies lost as we go forward. So I'm kind of reluctantly supporting this motion. Thank you. Ms. Daly, you call the roll?
This is Robin Daly from the Superintendent's Office. Jill Cantor?
No.
David Fury?
Yes.
Jeremy Halleck?
Yes.
Anthony King?
Yes.
Leonard Lockhart?
No.
James Madison?
Yes.
Paul Panos?
Yes.
Ayanna Taylor?
Yes.
Nathan Wollaston?
Abstain.
Six, two, one.
The motion passes 6-1. Thank you, everyone. Next item on the agenda is item 7C, liaison reports, and I'll start with Ms. Taylor and Mr. Wollaston. So Mr. Wollaston, you're here. Do you have anything to report regarding the high school?
Nothing to report at this moment, thank you.
Ms. Taylor, anything to report?
No, just go Warriors. You're doing great. Keep up the great job on the fields and on the court. And congratulations to Coach Ken Smith on 700 wins. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Windsor High? Sage Park, Mr. King.
Nothing to report at this time.
Mr. Panos?
I'd just like to report that we had there was a PTO meeting. It was fairly well attended, and it was a live. It was a very interesting meeting. They had a lot of suggestions on how to raise money, and they had a lot of energy to go forward. I was very happy to see that. There's February 26th will be the next PTO meeting, but it was interesting that they also talked about an app called BART, which parents can use. It was quite, yeah. Can you hear me? I think it was BART. B-A-R-T, which is used, they say, for, that parents can put on their children's cell phone, and it detects bullying of any kind by anybody.
It's like a
And it immediately shuts that down, the conversation down, and reports it directly to the parent. And so I thought it was, they had a lot of suggestions. This is quite a good group they have there. It was a very good PTO meeting because, after all, the principal wasn't there. She happened to be sick. But February 26th is the next PTO meeting at the library, 6 o'clock. It is a very interesting organization, and so, you know, I urge you. Also, February, what is it, 28th, I think it is, we're going to have the Black History celebration. So that should be very interesting. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Sage Park? And all I can say, I'm glad that PTO is up and running and doing well. It's an important, many parents think, okay, my kids isn't elementary school anymore, I can just let them go. And that's not the case. I was involved myself as when it was called a PTSA, Parent Teacher Student Association, at middle school and high school. And it's just as important, if not more important. You don't do as much hands-on stuff, but you need to know what's going on, especially in today's world. So thank you. Next, Clover Street School.
Yeah, just two things. One is the African American read-in on February 14th. Dr. Hill, Dr. Mallory, and Mr. Lockhart were there, so thank you. That's a great event. The big star of the show was actually our local people, but the governor happened to show up too. So the governor did some reading, which is always nice. The other big event is February 28th. They're having the Black History Month Living Museum, where various people will dress up as historical figures and students try to figure out who that is. I told Mrs. Lee, make sure somebody's Booker T. Washington, my favorite capitalist. I also forwarded my favorite paper on why he's a great capitalist that I had sent to Dr. Hill. I sent it to Mrs. Lee. And I would love to see that added to the Black and Latino studies one of these days in high school, because Booker T. Washington was an outstanding capitalist, and I love him. That's all.
Any questions for Clover? Next is JFK, Ms. Cantor.
Yes, the February PTO meeting was canceled because there was a lot of students going around, so they didn't have it. So on Friday, this Friday the 21st, there's an assembly from 9:30 to 10:30 for Black History Month. On Monday, February 24th, the book club, FRC, is from 6 to 7. Tuesday, March 4th is an early dismissal, and then Monday, March 10th is a PTO meeting from 6 to 7. And Wednesday, March 12th through the 14th are early dismissals, and we have the parent-teacher conferences.
Any questions for JFK? Oliver Ellsworth, Mr. Lockhart. Thank you. Paquonic School, Mr. Halleck.
Thank you. On tomorrow, February 20th, from 1 to 2 p.m. is a Black History, American History Assembly. Number 2. On March 3rd is a coffee and tea event with the principals. That's from 9:30 to 10 a.m. And the first one was last month, and it was a huge success. They discussed the transition for going into first and second grades. On Monday, March 3rd, as well, is going to be the next PTO meeting from 6 to 7 p.m. in the library. Tuesday, March 4th, is a teacher professional development day. There'll be no school. March 12th through the 14th are parent teachers conferences. And on March 31st from 5:30 to 7:30 is going to be a STEM night at Paquonic School. That concludes my report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions regarding Paquonic? Next item is number 8 on the agenda, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. And first, I'd like to say thank you to the board for your deliberations and your time and energy as far as coming to a recommended and accepted percentage increase for the budget. And my team and I will meet that expectation. So I just want to make sure the public hears that. And again, thanking the board. This is one of the biggest responsibilities of a board is the budget. And I think Mr. Panos kind of mentioned it earlier, and I want to make sure the public understands it. So I just feel like I'm educating them. Once I present the budget in January, public, it's the board's budget. So although I move the pen around with Ms. Batchelder or clicks on a computer, I present it in January, it becomes the board's budget at that point. And we do what the board wills. And then the board, now that it's voted, this budget at 588 will go to town council, and town council will decide what it will with the budget before it's put out for referendum in May, just so the public really understands. I shared that earlier this evening at my latest coffee talk, just so people try to understand how this works. I think we need to, in our country, we need to really work on getting folks to understand how the political processes work at all levels. So I just want to make sure people understand that. On February 12th, we had 5 Windsor High School student athletes do their commitments for, it was a National Signing Day. So we have Mr. Emmanuel Cox, who will be attending Assumption University. For football, Javon Jones will be playing football at Southern Connecticut State. Jaden Langford will be playing football at Central Connecticut State, along with John Manning, who will be playing football at Central Connecticut State, and Kashmir Lewis will be attending Bowling Green State University, playing football there. So congratulations to those young men. Their hard work paying off thus far, that they're receiving the opportunity to continue playing football as student athletes, as I like to stress, at the next level. And last Friday, I attended the National African American Read-In at Clover. Clover had a busy week, as Mr. Madison alluded to. So prior to that read-in, we had the governor come into the school, and he spent a little bit of time in school. He spoke to and read a little bit to a group of 3rd graders and a group of 5th graders. But I don't want to leave out our state rep, who also read because she was voluntold by the governor to read, Ms. Jane Garibay. So she stepped in admirably. And our mayor, Ms. Nushat Black-Burke, she also read to the students that day as well. But the governor was there and for twofold reasons. He was celebrating former President Lincoln's, or long past President Lincoln's birthday, and Black History Month. And he had chose to come to Clover Street School. And Clover Street stayed in the spotlight, again, with the National African American Read-In. So this is the 3rd year of this program at Clover Street. So Principal Lee and our reading interventionist, Ms. Laura Wilson, this was coordinated, and members of the Divine Nine actually were the readers, so I'm very proud of that. And for those who don't know, these are members of the historically Black fraternities and sororities, but these were just the men. So the fraternities, they showed up. So Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, that would be my fraternity. Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, that would be Mr. Lockhart and Mr. Monroe, who came over from the high school. He is a Kappa Alpha Psi. And I don't think we had any Alpha Phi Alpha brothers this year, but this is the 3rd year, and it's a great event. And I was most excited because I did a podcast taping with Ms. Wilson afterwards, and I was asking about feedback that she's received now that it's been 3 years. And it was nice to hear one particular comment from a student who recognized a reader from their 1st year. So they're like, you read to me when I was in 3rd grade. And that person just happened to be in this classroom when the students are 5th grader, but they remembered that person coming. So those are nice things that we get to do. Today I participated in a panel for Central Connecticut State Universities for their 093 program. That is the superintendent's program. And my good friend, Dr. Kate Carter, who's the superintendent in South Windsor, This is the third year that I've been asked to sit on a panel with some other superintendents to talk to the students that are in that program, to give them the highs and the lows, the fun and the fury of being a superintendent. And overall, though, we told them it's a great job. It's a great role to take on. It has its challenges, but as I stated, why would you want to do anything that doesn't have challenges? It's not of any significance or importance. Anything you do in life that's of importance, that's going to leave a legacy, there has to be some kind of challenge to it. So that is the next crop of superintendents from that institution that are going to be coming forward to replace us all here in the state. And that's my report for today.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the superintendent's report? I do want to thank you and your staff for all the work you've done on the budget. And of course, now we've given you more work to do on the budget. But it's much appreciated. Your staff is always so responsive to our questions, and that's.
So I would like to say thank you. Thank you for that compliment, Mr. President. And I want to thank the Finance Committee Chair, Mr. Lockhart, for the process. But this is also when I thank all of my team for being a part of this budget process. It's much longer than people think. It's actually months, right? It's more than just the presentation. And again, I want the public to know that we're looking at the budget. So even though we have a percentage to meet now, and we will, and the budget's going to be voted on in May at some point after the town council, we are looking at the budget continually, all throughout the year. So we look for savings, we look for, so I already have ideas at this time every year of what I want to take out of the budget to, present a budget that the town would be, find more palatable. So this is an ongoing process. We don't just wait until winter time to do this. And so it's a very important thing. And I particularly want to thank Ms. Batchelder. She's our Chief of Operations. And yes, this is her job, but I don't take people for granted. She's working on this budget, as I said, for months. And she works on, I know I don't tell her to, but she works on this budget over the weekends, right? She's texting me, she sends ideas, hey, I found a cut here, or I found some savings here, and she has suggestions. And my cabinet overall, we sit together because I want all my cabinet to understand how this budget process works. And you've seen my administrators at various meetings because I want everyone to understand how the budget process works. My understanding is that this is not the norm in a lot of districts, not even nationwide. So people typically don't understand. And as all of you have said in different ways, I just kind of smiled tonight. Money is not infinite and it doesn't grow on trees, and budgets don't just appear out of anywhere. So people have to understand how school districts are funded and how monies are allocated so that you can run a school district. And I'll say to the public, a budget is basically a snapshot of the priorities of any organization. Mr. Panos mentioned corporations. He's 100% correct. You have to always look at your budget and understand if it's too inflated, can you cut back here? Maybe you move up over here. But I want you to understand, public, it's a snapshot of the priorities of that particular organization. So as we endeavor to make the reductions to get to the 588, inevitably some folks are going to be unhappy. And I'm not saying that to cause any angst or sadness, but that's just a reality of doing budgets, right? It's what it is. So I want people in the public to understand that.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, number 9, is committee reports. Are there any committee reports? Seeing and hearing none there. The next item on the agenda, number 10, other matters, announcements, regular Board of Ed meetings. Next Board of Ed meeting is Tuesday, March 18th, 7 o'clock in the boardroom. Any other announcements? Mr. King? Mr. Madison?
No, thank you.
Mr. Wollaston? Mr. Panos? Mr. Lockhart? Those virtual, any announcements? Ms. Taylor?
No.
Mr. Halleck?
Yes, I have one. The choral department at Windsor High School is putting on a Earth, Wind, and Fire event for Black History Month, and that will be on February 27th at 7 p.m. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cantor, anything?
No, I have nothing, thank you.
Okay, very good. Next item is audience to visitor. Let me see if there's, quickly say, is there anybody in the boardroom who'd like to address the board? Is there anyone with hand raised, Ms. Daly? Okay, without objection, I'm going to close audience to visitor and looking for one more motion.
Second.
Motion made by well, the guys are in
right.
agreement now. Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstention. I'm saying motion carries 9-0-0. We are adjourned.